Welcome back. So today's lesson, or the lesson that's covered in this video, is we're going to talk a little bit more about this idea of a server. And we're going to go into more detail because it's really important. Like, people don't talk about servers all that much unless you're really knowing computers. But I think if you're just learning about the internet and learning about computers, understanding the contours of this like mythical server, I think can really help you understand how the internet works. So we're going to spend some time in this video doing that. And again, this is part of a course, T550, that I'm taking for the Harvard Graduate School of Education, Designing for Learning by Creating, where my final project was I'm teaching my parents the internet. So Mom, Dad, this is for you. This is what a server farm is. So I talked about, just to recap, remember that the internet is just, think about computers talking to other computers, and some of the computers make requests and other computers respond to those requests. So let's say that I walk into a restaurant and I order a meal. You can kind of think of me as the computer who's like making the request, and then the cook receives my request and says, okay, I'm going to cook that up for you, and then I'll send it back to you. The cook is the server in that scenario. So I'm a computer, the cook is a computer. My name in internet parlance or vernacular language is the client, and then the cook in this example, the cook's name is the server. So a server is just a computer that serves up information to other computers that request that information. Because remember, all the internet is a bunch of computers that are talking to each other back and forth, and some of those computers are responding to requests. Okay. So I got this question from my mom about going into a little bit more detail about these servers, like I talked about how, let's say, Google owns servers, Facebook owns servers. Well, the reality is, like, any website you go to, right, you're making your let's say you go from your laptop on a browser, and you make a request. Let's say we'll keep it with computers. Your computer makes a request for a website. And well, the website is going to be like another computer somewhere else is going to receive that request and then respond and send to your computer all the information it needs. So let's say it's like Facebook, right? Well, Facebook owns like a ton of computers, and that just respond to requests of people asking Facebook for, hey, I'm going to facebook.com. I'm a computer that's making a request to facebook.com. Well, then they have to have a zillion computers that are responding to those requests. They need to employ like a zillion cooks because so many people are on Facebook making requests simultaneously. So many people are putting in orders to eat at the restaurant that Facebook needs to respond by hiring enough cooks. They need to have enough servers to respond to all of their clients. Well, where do they store all of these computers? They actually store them in something called a server farm, which is just like a huge building that just contains a bunch of computers, or technically all the computers put together are the server farm. The place where it's all located is called a data center, but whatever. You can just think server farm. It's an easy way to think a bunch of computers together, and all they do, a bunch of cooks, like a zillion cooks together that are just responding to orders. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to share my screen on Zoom here, and so that way you can see a little bit of what a server farm looks like. One second. So, but I think once you see it, it will give you a little bit of an idea of what these computers look like, because they're just like stacked from the floor to the ceiling. It's just computers that are just responding to requests. They're just cooks taking in orders. All right, here we go. All right. So now hopefully you can see my browser and you can see a server farm, and you can see what the definition here. A server farm or server cluster is a collection of computer servers. And server farms often consist of thousands of computers which require a large amount of power to run and to keep cool. So here's, I think, a cool picture. Look at this. Look at this picture. This picture right here, I'm not sure if it's right there. Well, let's stick on here. So this picture right here that I'm kind of moving my mouse around, these are just computers. They're all computers. So imagine they're just like cooks all in one room responding to all sorts of simultaneous requests. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. One of the things that when I just did a search there, it said that they can get it requires a lot of power and it can get very hot. It needs to be cool, right? Well, sometimes these server farms are actually in climates that are naturally cooler so that companies don't have to like spend a lot of money on air conditioning, right? They have to be kind of temperate, right? So I think that Facebook might have server farms located in Oregon. That's just off the top of my head. So that could be completely wrong. I could be completely off base with all of that. But hopefully that gives you some type of understanding that there are just a gajillion cooks in this one kitchen, and they are just responding to requests all over the world, all over the world. And one thing that you might not think about, but how far away you are from a server farm could actually impact how fast your website loads. So let me give you an example. Like, just like I need to travel to, let's say I'm in Massachusetts right now. Let's say I need to travel to California. Well, that's all the way across the country. So I have to travel all the way across the country in order to, let's say, deliver a message. Let's say I'm dropping off a letter and for some reason I'm not using the mail. I don't know, it's a dumb analogy, but please don't hold it against me. Just let's go with it, right? So I need to travel all across the United States to drop off this piece of mail. Let's say it's a really important piece of mail and I want to hand deliver it in person, right? Well, that's a long way to travel. As opposed to, let's say I just need to go to Connecticut, which is like 2 hours away from where I live right now, maybe even less. So I just need to go to Connecticut. I just drive 2 hours and then all of a sudden I can drop off the message. Well, it's kind of like the same thing with server farms. Like if they're really far away from you, then there's actually, like it actually takes longer to get to you, as opposed to if you're right next to the server, right? Now, companies have all sorts of different ways where they get around that, but just know that that is a concern. Now, granted, we're talking about like, does the website load in, you're talking about like fractions of seconds difference, right? But those fractions of second differences can be attributed to the length that these signals, the lengths that the computers have to go to send the messages to each other. There's technology and other things and ways that they can get around with it. But just know that that's a real issue. Like that's an issue that companies have to think about. So that's what the idea of a server farm is. And we're going to go and we're going to talk in an upcoming video about Amazon Web Services, which they think of them as like a company where you can like, they're a division of Amazon, and you can just like buy servers. So you don't have to operate your servers yourself, right? So let's say I'm a website that just wants to start up, right? Well, man, putting together a server and like server farms, I mean, that's complicated stuff. Wouldn't it be fantastic if I could just rent a computer at an existing server farm, or however many computers I needed, however many servers I needed at a server farm that would do the work for me. If I'm just starting a new website, let's just say I'm starting like a website, let's say, a coffee shop website. Well, people need to go to my website and they need to make a request to the server, and the server has to send back information, just like we talked about before. Well, instead of putting together like the computer myself, I could just call Amazon and I can say, hey, Amazon, why don't you do it? And Amazon runs a division called Amazon Web Services, which is insanely profitable and actually covers, I don't know, I'm going to guess like 65% of websites out there exist. They rent servers from Amazon, so they don't have to deal with it themselves. Unsolicited stock tip: if AWS is ever spun out as a separate company, you should absolutely invest in that. Today is November 26, 2020, so we'll see if I'm right. But if that ever goes public and it's divorced from Amazon, the company, I'm absolutely investing, and you should too. So all the disclaimers apply. I feel like I'm giving advice, and I have no reason to give advice, and I am not in any way affiliated in Amazon. I guess I own one share of Amazon stock, so that's it, just one share. So I feel now I'm rambling. This absolutely needs to end right here. So hopefully you'll learn a little bit about server farms. I'm cutting myself off. Until next time.